last roundtable, we were talking about balance. And there were some
Yeah.
aspects of that you weren't able to articulate just from the time constraints that were there.
Hmm.
When you think back to that conversation now with some distance from it, is there anything that you wish that you would have said or added to the conversation around balance?
Uh, that is tough to say. I think just like your talk, I probably could have used half an hour to an hour to do it properly. And so I don't know if there was anything in terms of high level um, things that needed to be said, but I think that they probably could have used some fleshing out. So I couldn't quite tell, for example, if people got me. So I'm not sure what to do with that 100%. Um, and I think that they're whether or not somebody agrees, I think they're points worth considering because I think a lot of time want solutions to problems we don't well articulate. And I think one of the biggest ones in this case, like in terms of balance or life balance or whatever, is nobody defines it and then there's no context. I mean, we say, okay, the context is life, right? But what does that mean? What do we do with that? What part of life? And do we expect to never feel like we're overwhelmed? Do we expect things to be easy? You know, that's why I flashed a number of possible synonyms or antonyms to trigger people. Um, yeah, and so I think context matters, and I think it's also really important that we differentiate training environment from living environment, and this idea that on a very basic level, um, if we don't have the skills, capacities, awarenesses that allow us to navigate our circumstances with ease, we have to build them. And the process of building them is not easy and it's not comfortable. And so there's this conflict, right? And there's always going to be that element of perceived discomfort and stress in the training phase. And then ideally, if we do it right, there's an element of ease in the experience or living phase. Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm not sure how well I communicated that at the time. But that's the crux of it, I think. And this idea that there are um, blind triggers, you know, and I use the term volatility. I think that if experience in life is either speeding up or is amplified in terms of volume of new things, I think that we can't assume old tactics, strategies, and skills to seamlessly transfer. I think that we're in a new category um, of performance. And the problem is those things can hit at any time, right? We can't predict when those are going to hit. And it might be a death in the family. It might be somebody gets sick. It might be losing a job or a client. If you're an entrepreneur, it could be any number of things like that. And whatever shakes that sense of homeostasis, um, that's a problem. And I don't think it's a problem that we defeat by looking for comfort or balance. I think it's one that we can resolve and feel a sense of balance if we're training for war. um, you know, maybe not war with a capital W, but you know, at least trying to prepare ourselves for um, a degree of unpredictability. So, yeah.
Hmm. When, well, I'll ask it this way or mention, have you read the book, I assume, by George Leonard, Mastery?
I have not yet. No.
Tried and true. It's a great little read. But when you're talking about balance being conceptual or context driven, it struck me that there are times when we are seeking, and this is personally and professionally, but we're seeking stability, like a stabilization or integration or safety phase. And I think that in the personal growth world, sometimes that's looked down on, that a lesser goal. However, it just to me is. Sometimes that's what we want. We want stabilization. We want calmness. We
Yeah,
want
all the
safety.
time.
And oh, maybe I'll hang on. I want to see if you think all the time.
Yeah.
But then at some points, that sameness, that stability becomes boring because we're ready for that another like platform step up. We're ready to expand. And at those times, that's where we may risk temporarily feeling imbalanced for the reach.
For sure.
Knowing that actually in the bigger picture, those periods of plateau and expansion happen repeatedly throughout life. And only when we're in resistance to that kind of meta pattern do we have maximal suffering, where we overly attach to everything has to be same and stable and sustainable, or I always have to be going big or going home or reaching, or everything has to be super intense.
Yeah.
And you'll see different forms. I'm sure you've seen different ways people attach to either experience. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point and maybe a good direction.